Amidst the eerie calm of Verantic's lush jungles, the ground subtly trembled as if breathing. Concealed from the view of the Galactic Council team, ancient statues, half engulfed by verdant vines, stirred, their stone eyes flickering to life. As the team's drill penetrated the sacred soil, a low, resonant hum vibrated through the forest. A sound not heard for centuries. The operator of the drill paused, a shiver of unease crawling up his spine. Did the Earth just? His question lingered, unanswered, as the whispered warnings of the jungle went unheeded. At the break of dawn, light brushed the tops of the dense canopies as the Galactic Council's spacecraft, the Dauntless, made a gentle landing on the moist soil of Verantic, a planet shrouded in mystery, its jungles teeming with life that pulsated and whispered secrets of an ancient civilization. Captain Edward Hayes, leading the expedition under the guise of scientific research, gazed out at the vibrant alien world with a mix of awe and trepidation. "Spectacular, isn't it?" murmured Dr. Lena Mirov, the team's chief biologist, her eyes alight with the insatiable curiosity that defined her. Edward nodded, scanning the horizon. "It's more than that. It feels alive." His hand instinctively touched the hilt of his sidearm, a soldier's habit in unfamiliar terrain. As the team set up their equipment, the morning silence was shattered by the high-pitched whir of the drill as it bored into the fertile soil, targeting the deposits of star lithium identified from orbit. This rare mineral was the purpose of their mission, sent by the Galactic Council to secure what could be the future of interstellar travel. However, the planet seemed to react immediately. The ground subtly quaked. A low rumble felt through the soles of their boots. The wildlife stirred, a symphony of unseen creatures commencing a cacophony of calls and cries that blended with the rustling of the wind through towering ferns and colossal flowers. "Do you hear that?" Edward asked, pausing to listen. The sounds of the jungle grew louder, more insistent. "It's just the planet waking up," Lena replied, though her brow creased slightly as she jotted down notes on her digital pad. Yet, as the drill penetrated deeper, the disturbances intensified. Birds with iridescent feathers and long, sweeping tails took flight, casting eerie shadows upon the earth. Flowers snapped shut, and vines recoiled as if sensing an invisible threat. Edward couldn't shake the feeling that their presence was unwelcome. Suddenly, the drill operator, a burly man named Thomas, yelled out, "Captain, you need to see this." Rushing over, Edward saw Thomas pointing at the drill's monitor. The screen flickered, showing static that hinted at interference, but within the image were shapes, silhouettes that seemed almost humanoid. "Shut it down," Edward commanded sharply. The drill powered off, and for a brief moment, silence enveloped them. Then, a clear, distinct thud echoed from beneath the ground, as if something had struck the underside of the drill platform with force. "What was that?" Lena whispered, her voice tinged with fear. Edward didn't answer. He was already in motion, signaling his team to gather. They collected their gear swiftly, their instincts honed by countless missions now alert to new dangers. Yet, this mission was unlike any they had undertaken before. As they regrouped, the jungle seemed to lean in closer, the air thick with moisture and a tangible sense of surveillance. Edward surveyed his team, their faces etched with resolve and a trace of fear. "We're not alone here," he stated quietly, the gravity of his words permeating the air. "Keep your eyes open and stay together. We need to discover what is safeguarding this planet, and why." Their mission had evolved, and as the team ventured deeper into the underbrush, every shadow and rustle in the verdant foliage hinted at the mysteries awaiting them. The Sentinels of Verdance, though unseen, felt nearly tangible in the charged atmosphere, guardians of a world on the precipice. As dawn cast its first light over the vibrant canopies of Verantic, Captain Edward Hayes and his team commenced their second day with a heightened sense of urgency. The jungle, dense and teeming with life, seemed to observe their every move with watchful eyes. Edward led the group deeper into the wilderness, towards the coordinates where the star lithium readings were the strongest. The terrain became increasingly perilous. Roots twisted across the path like ancient serpents, and the air was thick with the sweet, cloying scent of alien flora. Despite Verantic's undeniable beauty, every rustle in the underbrush put the team on high alert. "Sensors up," Edward commanded, his voice slicing through the distant chorus of unseen creatures. The team deployed a series of sophisticated equipment designed to probe the ground without the need for invasive drilling, a concession Edward had argued for to minimize their impact on this uncharted world. No sooner had the sensors been activated than a subtle vibration stirred beneath their feet. Initially so faint, Edward thought he had imagined it. Then, a low growl rumbled through the jungle, a sound no earthly creature could produce. Leaves trembled on the massive trees towering above, and an eerie silence followed, suffocating in its intensity. "Captain, look," one of his men exclaimed, pointing towards a thicket where vines writhed and coiled with unnatural speed, ensnaring a pair of robotic scouts sent ahead. The machines emitted pitiful whirs as they were drawn into the dense foliage and crushed within seconds. "Pull back," Edward ordered, but as they retreated, the jungle seemed to close in around them. It was then that they appeared, not with the stealth of specters, but with the thunderous might of a stampede. The Sentinels of Verdance burst through the undergrowth, their bodies painted with the colors of the earth, vibrant greens and deep browns that shimmered with a hint of bioluminescence. They moved with a grace that belied their formidable presence, each motion a testament to centuries of guardianship. "Cease your actions, intruders," a powerful yet unmistakably feminine voice boomed. A figure stepped forward, her stature commanding. This was Lyra, the leader of the Sentinels, her eyes a piercing silver that reflected the burgeoning sunlight. Edward raised his hands in a gesture of peace, signaling his team to lower their weapons. "We mean no harm," he began, his voice tentative. "We came for star lithium, and you would strip away the heart of Verantic." Lyra interrupted, her voice softening, not out of sympathy, but to underscore her determination. "This planet is alive, its pulse intertwined with the star lithium you seek. Every wound you inflict upon the land resonates through its essence." Edward's eyes shifted from Lyra to the surrounding jungle, the damage now glaringly evident in the light of day. "Is there a way to coexist, to extract what we need without causing harm?" Lyra's expression stiffened. "Not with the methods you employ. You awaken the wrath of Verantic, as countless others have before you, only to meet its protectors." Edward recognized this moment as a critical pivot in their mission. "Then teach us, Lyra. Help us understand how to live with Verantic, not merely on it." A tense silence hung in the air, the jungle as if holding its breath. Finally, Lyra nodded slowly. "We shall see if you are capable of learning, or if, like the others, you are doomed only to destroy." As the Sentinels receded back into the foliage, Edward sensed that the true mission was only beginning. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainties, but the possibility of understanding and coexisting with Verantic offered a flicker of hope. He knew the challenges ahead would test not just their survival skills, but their very humanity. Captain Edward Hayes paced the perimeter of their makeshift camp, his boots sinking slightly into the lush soil of Verantic. Each step was a stark reminder of the planet's vibrancy and the life it harbored, a life now threatened by their mission. Despite the Galactic Council's assurances, the jungle was far from dormant, reacting to their intrusion with growing hostility. "Captain, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Mara, her voice tinged with urgency. Edward quickened his pace towards where Mara stood, her gaze fixed on a series of holographic displays showing thermal and movement patterns. The screens flickered with outlines of the jungle's flora and fauna, but among the expected readings, anomalous signals throbbed. "It's like the whole jungle is alive," Mara remarked, her words echoing Edward's mounting apprehension. "See here. These movements aren't random. It's almost as if there's a coordinated defense mechanism." Before Edward could reply, A low growl resonated through the camp, swiftly followed by rustling from the towering ferns. The pair of luminescent eyes materialized, then another set, until the perimeter was encircled by the gleaming gaze of the planet's protectors, the Sentinels of Verdance. Emerging from the shadows with a commanding yet non-threatening aura was Lyra, the leader of the Sentinels. Her skin was adorned with bioluminescent tattoos that traced ancient scripts. "We have observed you, off-worlder," Lyra declared, her voice laden with unspoken threats. "Your machines contaminate our soil, and your greed blinds you to the living pulse of Verantic. Cease your assault on our world." Edward met her intense gaze, the internal conflict evident in his expression. "We came seeking resources, not conflict. Surely, there's a way to coexist, to harness the power of star lithium without inflicting harm," he proposed, his tone both sincere and assertive. Lyra's eyes narrowed, gauging his resolve. "Your words speak of peace, yet your actions sow destruction. Why should we trust you when every rotation of your drill pierces the heart of our world?" A tense silence enveloped the camp. Edward recognized the significance of this confrontation. It could dictate the fate of both their civilizations. "I propose a truce," Edward ventured. "Allow us to demonstrate our respect for your world. Teach us how to coexist with Verantic, not merely reside on it." Lyra stepped forward, her gaze piercing. "We will watch you, Edward of the Galactic Council. Your deeds will speak for you. But be warned, betray our trust, and Verantic's retaliation will be immediate and formidable." As Lyra and her Sentinels retreated into the jungle's embrace, Edward felt the gravity of her words. Turning to his team, he saw his own turmoil mirrored in their expressions. It was evident. Their mission was no longer just about acquiring star lithium. They were striving for an opportunity to amend a wrong, to restore a balance they had unwittingly disrupted. Back at his command station, Edward dispatched a coded message to General Verantic, outlining their predicament and recommending a halt to operations. Uncertain of Verantic's response, he knew the necessary course of action. For now, all they could do was wait and hope, eager for a chance to mend the damage they had inflicted in their pursuit. Edward stood at the edge of the Verantic's jungle, his gaze fixed on the towering silhouettes of the Sentinels in the mist. His hand hovered over his communicator, the weight of his next decision pressing down like the thick, humid air that enveloped him. With a decisive flick, he turned the device off. There was no going back now. A rustle in the undergrowth heralded Lyra's arrival. Illuminated by the soft glow of bioluminescent plants, her features, both alien and hauntingly human, shone ethereally. "You have chosen to meet, despite your orders," she observed, her voice a harmonious blend of caution and curiosity. "Yes," Edward replied, his tone resolute. "There's much we didn't understand. This mission is no longer solely about resources. It's about survival, both yours and potentially ours." He took a step closer, his hands empty and open. "I propose a truce. Teach us. Help us understand star lithium without the destruction." Lyra tilted her head, considering his words. "And the Council? Will they agree to halt their plans for our world?" Edward's jaw clenched. "I can't speak for the Council, but I can influence them with the right information. We need to show them there's another way." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a crackle from Edward's communicator, which he still clutched though it was powered off. Confusion morphed into alarm as General Verantic's voice erupted through the static, urgent and commanding. "Captain Hayes, proceed with the operation. Extraction must not be delayed." Realization dawned on Edward with a bitter taste. An old trick, a forced transmission meant to expose any dissent. He was not merely being watched, he was being manipulated into revealing his shifting loyalties. Without a word, Edward crushed the device under his boot, effectively severing the connection. "It seems we are out of time," he stated, locking eyes with Lyra. "Verantic won't stop, not now." Lyra nodded, her expression steely. Then we must protect what is ours. She emitted a sharp whistle, a sound that cut through the night. Almost instantly, the shadows around them stirred as more sentinels emerged, forming a protective ring. The ground shook, not from the natural forces of the planet this time, but from the approach of council forces. Edward positioned himself beside Lyra, resolute in his choice. "I didn't come here to wage war on those who merely wish to live," he declared, drawing his weapon not to confront the Sentinels, but to stand in solidarity with them. As Rizik's troops penetrated the underbrush, the Sentinels unleashed their might. Vines surged from the soil like serpents, ensnaring the intruders, disarming rather than wounding. Edward directed his team to employ non-lethal force, a clear demonstration of his commitment. The skirmish was intense yet brief. As calm returned, Edward and Lyra approached the detained soldiers, offering aid to the injured. "Let this be a message to Rizik and the council," Edward announced to the recording devices found on the soldiers. "There is strength in peace and honor in preservation. We stand with Verantics, not as conquerors, but as allies." Lyra stood beside him, newfound respect evident in her gaze. "Today, you have chosen a different path, human," she remarked, warmth coloring her voice for the first time. "Let us hope your leaders possess similar wisdom." As the night waned, Edward dispatched a secure message to his superiors, detailing the night's events. He harbored no illusions about the challenges ahead, but as he observed the Sentinels caring for their world with meticulous, deliberate actions, he was certain of the righteousness of his choice. For now, that had to be sufficient. The air was thick with the scent of ionized energy and scorched earth as the battle enveloped Edward and his newfound allies. He had never imagined standing shoulder to shoulder with the Sentinels of Verdance, the very guardians he had initially sought to subdue. Now, united by a common cause, they fought side by side. "Left flank, watch out!" Edward's voice pierced the chaos. Thora, a sentinel, acknowledged his warning with a nod, her eyes alight with fierce determination. With a graceful gesture, she extended her arm, and vines surged from her fingertips, swiftly entangling an approaching drone. With a forceful pull, she dragged it from the sky, and it crashed into the jungle floor with a satisfying thud. Beside him, Lyra engaged the enemy with a grace that masked her ferocity. Her staff traced deadly arcs through the air, disabling the advancing troops who dared to confront her. Edward was captivated by her combat style. Her movements were a mesmerizing blend of beauty and lethality, a dance of preservation and destruction. General Rizik's forces pressed on relentlessly, but the defenders of Verantic were equally resolute. Edward watched as the tide began to turn. The Sentinels' profound connection to their environment became their greatest weapon. Trees and plants responded to their commands, forming barriers and traps that stymied the attackers. A vivid display of nature's wrath under the direction of its staunchest defenders. In the midst of the turmoil, Edward spotted General Rizik, his features contorted with rage as he commanded his forces. Knowing what he must do, Edward dashed toward Rizik, weaving through blasts and debris. Upon reaching him, Rizik's expression shifted from surprise to contempt as Edward tackled him to the ground. "You don't have to do this, Rizik," Edward shouted above the din, restraining the general firmly. "Look around you. This isn't the way." Rizik snarled, his body tensing in defiance. "I will not let this planet and its primitives halt our progress. You're a fool, Edward, a traitor to your own species." Edward shook his head, his resolve unyielding. "See beyond your ambition, Rizik. We are the intruders here. This planet, these beings, they deserve to defend their home. There's still time to alter our course." Their confrontation was abruptly ended by the impact of a tranquilizer dart in Rizik's neck. Edward looked up to see a council officer approaching, her expression stern, backed by a squad. "We've observed enough, Captain," the officer declared. "General Rizik is hereby relieved of his command and will face charges for his actions. The council has resolved. Verantic shall remain unspoiled. Relief washed over Edward as he rose to his feet. Around him, the jungle seemed to exhale, the tension ebbing away. He joined Lyra and Thora, both weary yet resolute. The council will initiate treaty negotiations with the Sentinels, Edward informed them, meeting Lyra's steady gaze. Verantic's will be safeguarded. Lyra's features softened, the corners of her mouth curving into a subtle smile. And what of you, Edward? Will you return to the stars? Surveying the recovering jungle, Edward felt a deep connection to this place, more profound than he had ever anticipated. I think my journey here isn't quite complete. There's much to learn, and I believe I'm exactly where I need to be. As the sun set, casting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Edward and Lyra stood together, watching as night embraced Verantic. A peaceful quiet settled over the land, heralding a new beginning. A future where humans and Sentinels could coexist and learn from one another. The battle had ended, but the journey of mutual understanding and respect was just beginning.